And I'm just looking for things that articulate what I'm feeling, or maybe just address it in a way that resonates with me. I've just been kind of a jumbled mess about the whole thing, and it's. I want to say I don't know why, and that just adds to this overall sense of confusion. It is a life cut way too short. It is a man who was a child not that long ago. You think about 2008. For those of us who are adults, when you're a kid, 14 years
it's a long time
is a
ago.
lifetime.
Right.
But once you settle into who you are as an adult, the years start to fly by. And 14 years ago wasn't that long ago. And he was just a little boy who was happy. And I see that then, and you still see that. Like, I still see the little boy in my son today. That's what gets me. Even when the child grows up, the child's still there. And I think that's what's going to make it so hard, especially for his parents, who were with him every step of the way. And, my heart's broken for many of the people connected, for all of the people connected to Dwayne Haskins. But I think of the parents at a time like this, and it's just my own perspective, because my son, I remember going through the age where, hey, these football players are all starting to be younger than me. That's kind of a weird feeling.
Right.
And now it's a really weird feeling when a hell of a lot of them are younger than my son. And I think that's one of the reasons why, frankly, as my son got older, I started to have a better perspective on what these kids go through.
Yeah.
From my perspective, that's what they are, and they're still learning. Their brains are still formulating. They're still growing, and they get thrust into this billion-dollar industry. And, it's not the easiest thing in the world, and that's why there's been so much talk about mental health in recent years, deservedly so. You're making some pretty big adjustments, and you're operating on a pretty high wire with no net when you get thrown into the NFL. And all these people out there who resent how much money you're making, and there's full transparency on how much money you're making, and people know all these things about your life, and they can speak to you directly on social media. They can insult you. They can harass you. They can cuss at you. They can threaten you on social media. I can't imagine being 21, 22 years old and carrying all that around and dealing with all of that. And there would surely be times where you got to ask yourself, I don't know, this isn't all what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, well, it's not always. You're right. I mean, everyone just sees, the great stories in, the NFL, the ones where, everything worked out great. But, this was a story that, there was some bumps in the road. No question. And I think, you kind of laid it out perfectly, what you got to go through. Added to all the things we talked about. A young guy, young, one of the youngest in the draft, quarterback, only played 1 year, organization, not that great in Washington. Okay, they got their issues. And then you add in, young guy, now you get to his life and what he's dealing with. It's a very real thing. You're put in a position that nobody can prepare you for. It's not possible. No matter how many ex-players or agents or moms and dads talk to you, all of a sudden, yes, you're expected to be the answer, the guy for an organization. You're getting money. You got people talking to you and coming at you in different angles that you've never dreamed about. You don't even know how to handle all of it. It can be overwhelming, and we can be very critical of these young kids at times, and that's what they are. You're right. They're young kids for the most part. I was one of them at one point too. Thought I knew everything at 22 and 23 years old, and look at it now and go, damn, you were dumb as crap, and you knew almost nothing. So it's a learning curve, and you're right. Not everybody kind of approaches it, goes through it at the same pace. And that's just what stinks about this case right here. It's a guy that just seemed like a really good kid. He had talent, and we're never going to know how he was going to wrap up his life story here and where it was going to go, and that's a shame.
It's one of the blessings and curses of living a long time. The longer you live, the more you realize how dumb the things were that you did when you were young, but it equips us with the ability to have empathy and or sympathy for the mistakes being made by the kids who are still finding their way through life. And it's not nearly as glamorous, glitzy, and cushy as you think it is when you have a life in the NFL, because there's a lot of downside that we don't spend a lot of time talking about. And, the fans, frankly don't want to hear about it. They just want to be entertained by football players. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's one of the reasons why the money's there for so many of them. It's why people are interested in the sport. They want to watch the games. But we need to remember at all times that underneath the helmet, inside the pads, are human beings no different than the rest of us. They live normal lives. They have family and friends and issues and struggles. They are no different than the person next door to you. They have the same motivations and fears and concerns as your children do, as you did once upon a time. And we just need to, I'm not saying we need to spend all of our time thinking about football players as human beings, but it would be nice if we all spent some of our time thinking about it, because I fear that some spend no time taking a step back and viewing them as anything other than commodities, interchangeable parts in a football machine, pieces that we own on our fantasy teams, and now players who create frustration for us because on our phone we picked their team to win by 5.5 points and they didn't because of that guy, and I'm going to be mad at that guy, and I'm going to say something nasty about that guy and his family on social media because I lost $25. We just need to be willing to take a step back and remember that these are human beings, not robots fashioned in a lab for our entertainment. They are just people, and we need to factor that into how we view the sport. Not enough people, Chris, do that, I believe.
No, I mean that's for real. There's no doubt about that, and I think it's not easy. Players are treated like commodities. I've seen it my whole life, whether it was my father or myself. That is part of it. And I don't think, I agree with you. I don't think the general public really knows exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And I don't think a lot of the times the general public respects where a lot of these players come from and what they've had to deal with to get where they are and how the deck was stacked against them to get where they are, and they still got there. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where I think we could all do that in this country for a lot of different subjects. Put yourself in someone else's shoes and think about what they have to go through and what their life's like a little bit. We become a little too immediate response, immediate reaction. What have you done for me right now? And it feels like we've kind of lost that touch in society.
I'll be thinking about Dwayne Haskins and his family and his friends and teammates a lot in the coming days. I'll definitely be thinking about Dwayne on May 3rd. That's the day he would have turned 25, gone at 24. We're going to take a break. We're going to regroup, and when we return, we'll talk about the things happening in the National Football League. That's why you're here, and that's why we're here. So we'll focus on that. But Chris, I felt like we needed to start with this, because I think we all have something to process. If we care at all about football, we care about the men who play it. We all have something to process with this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.